Yeah, so he's quoting things from these secondary sources, and he's not checking the source of this. He's not
ironic
checking that primary source. But when you check the primary source, it's just like think tanks. It's like UNICEF, like just making broad claims based on feminist or liberal ideology. It's not like
zero
medical,
data.
Zero data. It's not like a medical study. So this is his dishonesty or incompetence. Maybe he's just incompetent. He can't distinguish between a secondary source and a primary source. That could be the problem.
Yeah. So this one.
Okay, here we go, guys. We're about to reach direct deception. Get ready. This is big. Get ready for this.
About all the childbirths that took place between 2003 and 2013.
Okay, real quick. Notice what is on the screen. 15 to 19, 20 to 24. What was the original claim in the reports? To go back to the studies I cited. Girls under 15, girls under 16. Notice now the shift. This is a bait and switch. Notice now we're only talking about girls over 15. That's important because, again, it's irrelevant. But this is what he's doing.
Okay.
So this right here is the adjusted data where, let me read from the paper, where they adjust for a large variety of confounding factors such as race, marital status, body mass index, obesity, drug use, smoking, the number of times that they have given birth. It adjusts for that. It makes it all equal. Maternal education, health insurance status, and the gender of the child. So this is the adjusted data that basically purifies the effect of age on maternal health. What do you see, Daniel?
Looks negligible, like the difference,
it is
under 35, it's like a negligible difference in morbidity and adverse outcomes.
Yeah, so that's exactly what the authors report. The authors reported that childbirth between ages 15 and 19 is perfectly fine, and it is basically equal to giving birth in early 30s or late 20s.
Okay, you heard what Abdullah said. He claims the study authors that made this graph say it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly fine for a girl 15 to 19 to have a child. Notice they don't put the study on the screen. They don't even say the title. Funny. Why wouldn't you say the title of this study if you want this study out? It took me a little while to find this because I had to search for keywords and things they say about it, but I found it. It doesn't say that. But first of all, remember, the claim was a girl under 15 is 5 times more likely to die in childbirth. This study is only looking at 15, so it's irrelevant to the point. This doesn't address my main point. But let's just pull up the study and go through it because I'm going to show you how they're being intentionally deceptive. Okay, they know what the study says. They have to know what the study says because they pulled those charts from it. Okay, here it is right here, ladies and gentlemen. Maternal age and severe maternal morbidity, a population-based retrospective cohort study. How do I know this is their study? Well, I will scroll down here and show you because there are the charts. They pulled these charts from the study. They didn't want to show you what the study actually says. Do they say it is perfectly normal to have children 15 and 19? There's no adverse health outcomes. No, let's just read from it directly. I'm going to go through it from the beginning. I'll go through all my highlights. Severe maternal morbidity was significantly higher among teenage mothers than among those. The elevated risk for severe morbidity among teen mothers disappeared after adjustment co-founders except for maternal sepsis. Similar associations were observed for fetal and infant outcomes. Neonatal mortality was elevated in teen mothers. So they know, yes, when you adjust for the ratios, a lot of the problems that result from girls 15 to 19 decrease. Thanks to modern technology, Western medicine, the things that apparently Daniel hates, which we'll get to in a minute. But you can't eat with all the medical technology out there. You still can't get rid of all the risk factors. You still can't get rid of them all. Let's scroll down here. So we studied live birth and stillbirth of mothers 15 to 60. So again, not below 15, 15 to 60. They looked at over 800,000, like Abdullah said there. Elevated risk for teen mothers. Again, after adjustments, the exception was the rate of maternal sepsis, which was highest among teen mothers. It declined with maternal age. So again, there still is an elevated risk. Okay, the rate of composite outcome of maternal death and severe morbidity was 2.1% among teen mothers, 1.5% among those aged 25 to 29, and 3.6% among mothers 44 years of age and older. However, teen mothers were at elevated risk of sepsis. Here's their charts. The absolute rate of fetal and neonatal death and morbidity were elevated among teen mothers, and neonatal death remained higher after adjustments for demographics and pre-pregnancy factors, while the rate of NICU admission was significantly lower among teen mothers after adjustments. So again, this is what it says, ladies and gentlemen. They're not telling you the full facts. They're saying, yes, after elevations, a lot of the risk for teen mothers after 15 goes down. Not under 15. They didn't even look at that. But you still have elevated risk for sepsis, neonatal death, these kinds of things, as the study directly shows. And again, what is the goal? To try to convince men around the world it's okay to marry and impregnate girls that are 15? That's your goal? And you're deliberately lying about what the paper says to get there? Guys, this is pure evil at this point. There is elevated risk. And again, they didn't even respond to my claim because the claim was under 15, you have these extreme high rates. But before we get back to it, important thing to note, yes, a lot of the studies I use focused on places like Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia. Why? Because I was picking studies that focused on countries away from Western influence, away from all the technology, because Daniel had said some things in the past that made me, raise a couple eyebrows here. So I'm going to play a clip of Daniel from another thing he did on developing technology and how it threatens Islam.
Modern technology, as we see in the West, without also getting modern society. Something like feminism. In order to generate enough, in order to have enough factory workers, and in order to have enough engineers and scientists and doctors, you can't exclude 50% of the population. You need to have women in that workforce. You need to have women to do the kinds of things that are necessary to free up the kind of innovation that will drive technology forward. So you need female education. If you have female education, women have to delay getting married. They delay getting married, so they have fewer children. They are more independent. They are more equal to their husbands. That destabilizes families. That produces this kind of independent woman phenomenon that we're suffering from today throughout not just Muslims, but throughout the world. But we cannot catch up if we are just leaving our women at home. We cannot catch up if we're sending our children to the madrasa to learn Quran. We cannot catch up if half of the education, or not half, but 100% of the education, or 90% of the education is about Quran and Hadith and fiqh. This is a waste of time. We have to send our sons and our daughters to learn science, learn mathematics, learn how to use electronics, use the computer, on and on and on. And they were right, in a sense. They were right that you could not achieve industrialization. You couldn't have the Muslim world have, this electric grid and, water treatment plants and you couldn't develop that within your country if you didn't create this educational system, this secular educational system. But what is the effect of that secular educational system? You secularize society. You take people away from Islam, and that's
all. This technology destroys Islam. You need according to him, you need a modern society that produces a secular system to produce the number of doctors you need to get these kind of adjusted results on the orange graph down here. But Daniel rejects that. So by Abdullah citing this, he is basically throwing Daniel under the bus. This is why in my opening statement, I went to studies in Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, India, where there is low technology. Because that's the ideal society Daniel wants. He doesn't want this technology that makes these risk factors lower. He wants the society where we see, a girl is 5 times more likely to die if she has a child under the age of 15. Because he says, we need to have Islam, according to him. We can't have these modern technology because it comes with modernism and feminism and secularism, and that's all bad. So we need to get rid of all that and go back to a simpler world, apparently. So this study is completely useless to help Daniel's position overall when he wants to argue for child marriage. Because you can only say, if you take, according to Daniel, you have a modern secular society with all its technology and doctors, you decrease some of the risks for teens after 15 to have a child. Doesn't get rid of them all even. Doesn't get rid of the psychological issues. Doesn't help girls under 15. But you at least have a slight decrease. But that doesn't work because Daniel's position is completely against this entire system to begin with.
Yeah, if you're scientifically illiterate, which is no problem. Like not everyone can study science. That's fine. Not everyone can have a science education. But if you're scientifically illiterate, then you won't even understand like what's the difference between these two graphs. Or if you're like Mike Jones, you'll see one sentence that confirms your bias, and then you cite that, you put that in a chart in a debate, and you run with it.
Or you see one graph and you just put that in your slides and you run with it, right, Daniel? Yeah, I know. Not everyone can do science, like actually read the study. And again, remember, neither Abdullah or Daniel told you where these graphs came from. I told you. I'm probably going to go to a studio in June to do an interview on child marriage. I got invited to. I'm probably going to bring this study with me and use it as my argument against child marriage, against teen pregnancy. Muslims have a really bad habit sometimes of giving me papers I can use against their position. I'm going to use this Washington State study. Thanks, Abdullah. This is going to help me make arguments against child marriage. Because even with all the technology, you can't get rid of all the risks. This is how bad they are at this. They don't want to show you the study because they know what it says. Well, at least Abdullah does. I don't know if Daniel does. But it doesn't support their position in the long run. This is the level of deceit and lies they are doing in their hangout to try to justify grown men marrying, abusing, and impregnating young girls. It's sickening. It's disgusting. And that's why I'm doing this. We're not going to stand for this nonsense. All right, let's move up a little bit here. Just